What's up, Barnhill family, and welcome to the live stream.
Yo.
So, Nick, this has been a popular request for both of us. Two things. One is long form content. They love the clips, but people want to see us talk for a little bit longer, 30 minutes or so. And then the other was people want to engage with us in the live chats. So this is an attempt to satisfy both of those things all in one.
Yeah, well, and the premieres, whenever we drop the videos live, tend to do pretty well. The comments are always fun. People are always engaging with us. So if we can get people in here live as we're speaking, as we're having fun talking about these fights, then we can maybe think of some things or talk about some things that we didn't have on the agenda or on our minds.
Exactly. And guys, drop us a comment and let us know, what would you like us to talk about? We want to answer some questions. Also, what would be a good time? Nick and I talked about maybe doing 6:30, 6:45 Central Time on Wednesday. That's kind of a time that works well for us, but we'd love to hear from you guys. We know you're all over the place in different time zones. So drop us a comment and let us know when you'd like to see us go live and what you'd like to hear us talk about. But Nick, let's without further ado, get into some news. Obviously, we want to predict the Rafael dos Anjos versus Rafael Fiziev main event that I think is just a killer lightweight fight that's going to take place this Saturday. But before that, I kind of want to get into something interesting, and that is Jon Jones coming out and saying, hey, look, I actually don't really have an interest in fighting Francis right now. I would actually prefer to fight Stipe Miocic, and I think that Stipe has done more for the division and would be a tougher challenge than Francis. And while I don't necessarily agree that at this stage in his career, Stipe is a tougher challenge than Francis, I do think Stipe has the better resume, and this would set up for a cool fight, which would be light heavyweight GOAT versus heavyweight GOAT.
Yeah, and it kind of serves for both options of, like, everybody saying Jon Jones doesn't deserve a title shot immediately jumping up, which I find that a little bit crazy. I think he absolutely deserves it. But if they were to create an interim title and put that up on the line, then that serves him not having to go against Francis first, him also not getting a full championship shot, but sort of getting one and getting crowned and basically forcing the hand of fighting for the title next. And with Francis out and not really wanting to be that active right now, I kind of feel like Stipe is the right guy. He's doing sort of what Justin Gaethje did a while back. You know, Justin Gaethje didn't have to do any fighting to remain the number one contender. No matter what anybody did behind him in the rankings, they weren't jumping him.
Yeah.
And when the time came, he was able to get back into the title shot. And I feel like Stipe is the same way. The last few years have been very slow for Stipe. It's one fight a year, max. Maybe it's less, you know, maybe 18 months you might see him fight once. But I think that this is a great fight for the division. It's a great fight for the sport. And people do want to see Francis versus Jon, without a doubt. That's like, I think it would do really well pay-per-view wise. But I feel like you want to sort of build some steam and not just start with your KO punch, right? You want to give us a little bit of something. Jon Jones at heavyweight. That's an experiment we want to see. Let's see it. Let's see him against arguably the best heavyweight of all time. If he gets past him, then he can go against who most people consider to be the most dangerous man on the planet, Francis Ngannou. And I think that would actually set up the Ngannou fight even better.
I completely agree. I think it satisfies a lot of demands and requests that the fans have. Obviously, I think the biggest fight the UFC could make right now is Jon versus Francis. However, we know that Francis is still in recovery from knee surgery, and knee surgery is nothing to play with. And the champ is going to take his time and come back when he feels like he's able and ready to take on who many people think is the great. Like, he doesn't have an easy task waiting for him when he comes back. He's got to fight the best person that's ever done it in the history of ever. So, you know, I could get why he would want to be 100% rehabilitated and then enter an 8 to 12 week training camp before he even thinks about stepping in the octagon with somebody as dangerous as Jon Jones. So this satisfies the activity because, look, we haven't seen Jon in a while, and quite frankly, we haven't seen Stipe in a while either, and a lot of people want to see both of them fight. So, and then also we want a little something on it. There's people that say Jon Jones has been out so long, the inactivity, he doesn't deserve to come back in and take a title fight right away. I don't necessarily subscribe to that. So why not do this? Why not come in, have him fight Stipe for the interim title fight? And then there's a little something on it when the winner of that takes on Francis, whether it's a trilogy fight with Stipe, he's the interim champ coming in to take back what he had or what Francis took from him, or it's Jon coming in as a newcomer to the division, but he's also got some hardware around his waist. And I think it makes for some interesting parity, and it keeps Jon and Stipe active. Now, here's the thing. Chris Weidman is saying, be careful what you wish for, John, because I've been training with Stipe, and this isn't 230-pound Stipe anymore. He's apparently a big old hoss walking around at 250 pounds of solid muscle and more motivated than ever in his late 30s. And one thing we know about heavyweights is, that later 30, 38, 39, even 40 is when they're really just coming into their own and they're in their prime. And Stipe at 250 pounds training super hard, I get John's the best to ever do it, but I mean, that's not an easy challenge for anybody.
No, I'll never question a UFC champion, but I will question Chris Weidman. What the heck are you doing sparring or training with a 250-pound Stipe? But, that's neither here nor there. I think that's obviously somebody in Stipe's camp that knows exactly how good Stipe is looking right now. And Stipe at 230 pounds was shredded. He had a six-pack.
Yeah.
You rarely see a guy at the heavyweight division, whether they're an athlete of any kind or a UFC fighter, have a six-pack or have any sort of definition in the torso. He was shredded, and he looked actually kind of lean. So I'd love to see him at 250. I can't imagine it's 250 of unwanted weight. It's probably 250 pounds of muscle that might slow him down a little bit, or it might give him that energy that he needs to push through and have extra pop on his shots. He's been a knockout guy. He's finished a lot of great fighters in his day. But if you add 20 pounds of muscle and it's put in the right way and he's able to adjust his body and move that frame correctly the way he's been able to move his old frame, then you're looking at something very, very dangerous.
Totally. And I think it's totally intentional that Stipe has put this size on, because he let us in on a little fun fact. I think it was when he fought DC for the second time, or one of the times he came in like closer to 230 pounds. The exact fight is slipping my mind right now. But he said, look, my wife was cooking me like home cooked food, like mashed potatoes and gravy. Like I was like not trying to lose weight. I just was training 2-3 times a day, preparing for a heavyweight title fight. And all of that calorie expenditure caused me to come into this fight 10 pounds lighter than I normally am. This was not intentional, which makes me believe that Stipe, in order to get to 250, he's not like Derek Lewis. He's not like Francis, where these guys are just, Tai Tuivasa that are right at the top end of heavyweight, and in some instances even have to cut weight to make heavyweight. Stipe Miocic could probably make 205 if he really sucked himself down. So I'm sure it's intentional. So I'm sure the 20 pounds that he's put on are a very solid 20 pounds, and they were done in the correct way. But then again, John was a 205er, and now he's put on 40 or 50 pounds. So it's going to be really interesting to see the two of them fight if they finally make this matchup. And it's also going to be really interesting to see when they walk out and both of them take their shirts off, what they both look like, because they will both look different than we've come to know them over the past several years. Yeah.
And I think Stipe, he's obviously way under the heavyweight limit. So he's one of those guys that might swing through the MGM Grand Buffet on the way to the weigh-ins, because he doesn't have to worry about anything. You can go eat some pasta or something as he makes his way to the weigh-ins. And John is very interesting that we've never seen John at this weight. And we've seen Stipe at heavyweight, but we've never seen him as big as they're claiming he is. So I am interested mostly in seeing the pace of this fight. I don't know if we're going to have that electric Jon Jones that we've seen, where he's snapping kicks the entire fight, or Stipe, where he's able to rush in and he uses his footwork and kind of that agility and that speed that not a lot of heavyweights have. When you add 20 pounds on somebody, or in John's case, 40 pounds on somebody, they're not usually the same fast, snappy fast twitch muscle guys.
Yeah.
They generally have to slow down a little bit. They aim for precision and they go with power shots instead. So I think this fight is actually very different for both fighters. I think we're going to see different fighters than we've ever seen out of these two guys. And I think it's the best fight for the division right now. Francis is obviously doing his thing. He's got the Tyson Fury stuff that he's trying to exercise, and he's trying to stay relevant any way he can. But at some point, he's going to have to come in there and face the music. I personally think that Stipe and Jon is the perfect number one contenders matchup. And like you said, neither of them have been all that active. So if ring rust is kind of a wash, maybe they both have a little bit of ring rust. Maybe they don't, who knows? But I think if we watch them go in there and put on a show for us, and one of them comes out with their hand raised, then that leads to a perfect fight with Francis.
I think so, for sure. And it looks like we got some people in the live. Torin Brown. What's up, Torin? Thanks for joining. Danger. How you doing, man? Thank you guys for joining the live.
Yo.
Drop us a question, guys. Let us know. We have a couple topics we want to talk about that we're going to get to, but we also want to answer some questions. If you guys have anything on your mind, drop it in the comments. Also, we said in the beginning, I don't know if you guys were here or not yet, but let us know what time works good for you guys as far as doing this live. Nick and I are going to try to do one a week, probably on Wednesdays. That seems to work best. E. Coleman, yo, what's going on?
Yeah, it's interesting. We've never done this, obviously, gone live. We've done it once for a pay-per-view, and we plan on doing that some more. But if you guys have any times that you'd like to see us in here, we can try to make it work. You know, we can generally make our schedule a little bit flexible. So just let us know. We'll kind of pick and choose a time that seems to work for as many different time zones as possible.
For sure. And so, Nick, let's get into another topic I want to talk about. And this is interesting because Charles Olivera has come out and basically said, I would prefer to fight Conor McGregor not for the belt than I would to go to Abu Dhabi and fight Islam Makhachev for the belt. And I think there's a lot of obvious reasons there. There's the red panty night. There's the fact that having to fly to Abu Dhabi to fight Islam Makhachev is certainly no walk in the park for anybody. And I think that's kind of interesting that he would say that. Now, the one caveat is that he said, I would fight Islam for the belt instead of Conor if they were to make that fight in Brazil. He feels like he's still the champion. He feels like he was robbed by the scale, so to speak. And he thinks that he deserves to defend his title that in his view, he never lost in Brazil. Now, so there's a couple things I want to pose to you that are very interesting to me. One is, what do you make of him preferring the Conor fight over the Islam fight? And then two, let's just play out the hypothetical scenario for a second. Let's say that they do decide to put Islam in there against Conor and they let Islam move on with somebody else for a title shot. Alexander Volkanovski just said he wants to move up and challenge for the 155 belt. I don't think many people would have a problem with seeing that. Also, there's Beneil Dariush out there. Beneil's done things and put together a resume that if Islam wasn't in the division, he would for sure be the next guy. So what do you think the UFC could do here in this scenario?
Well, there's plenty of people at 55 that deserve a title shot. I think Michael Chandler's always one hot take on a microphone away from getting a title shot. And I personally get where Charles is going when he says he'd rather fight Conor. There's very few fights left on Conor McGregor's
in his career.
Fight career. I don't even want to say his contract, his fight career. And you want to be one of those guys because let's just say you don't get the big paycheck that you think. You don't get points on the pay-per-view if you're not the champion and whatnot. You do get tons of exposure. And if you're the guy that beats Conor McGregor, then you've got even more fans and you're known more across the globe because as much as we love this sport and we never miss a single fight night all the way up to the pay-per-views, a lot of people don't know anything. They don't know what the UFC stands for, but they know when Conor McGregor shows up for a fight and they buy it. So Conor is absolutely the one unicorn in this sport. You got to go for him. And I get it. Charles Olivera could probably look pretty good at 170.
Yeah.
If you tell Conor McGregor you want to fight him at 170 and you do have some sort of, number one contendership or something like that on the line, he's willing to take it. I bet you if Charles Olivera made that decision, just like Dustin Poirier did, and said, you know what, screw the belt for right now. I'm going to go for the big money fight. He might actually get it. And Conor will always take that. I think he'd prefer to fight at 170, but if there's a belt on the line, he'll make the jump down to 155. And who's going to deny Conor McGregor a shot at the 155 title if he is hypothetically able to go in there at 170 and beat Charles Olivera, who is essentially the king of the 55 division?
They would give it to him for sure if he wanted it. I mean, if Conor comes in and this is why I think I actually like this move by Charles, because Charles kind of is in a weird position that not a lot of people are in right now, which is he was the champ, but he's been stripped of his title due to the whole issue with the scale. So he's not the champ. So he's not coming in as the reigning defending champ with the pay-per-view points and all of that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. So he can kind of take a deep breath and figure out and take his time almost, because here's the deal. If they make Charles versus Conor and let's say they make Dariush versus Islam for the belt, then Charles gets his big payday at the end of the year or beginning of next year when Conor does eventually come back. And Islam and Beneil or Islam and Volk or insert whoever versus Islam you want to put in there is shaken out. then Charles is just going to fight the winner of that for the belt again. So he's challenging for the belt either way because he's already lost it. So it's kind of an interesting position that he's in.
Yeah, and I think the same thing goes for Oliveira. If you tell Conor McGregor he beats Oliveira at 170, he's fighting for a 55 title, the same thing could go for Oliveira. Look, Oliveira, you're still winning all your fights. You might not have the belt, but if you go up there and beat Conor McGregor at 170 and then say, you know what, I'm ready to come back down, I don't think they're going to make him do very much heavy lifting. He might have to do a little bit of weighting because there's, fights and interims and things like that that will take place. But I think Charles Oliveira or Conor McGregor would jump right into a title shot. And, for me personally, those two are some of the most exciting fighters that the sport's ever seen. Justin Gaethje and Michael Chandler are known as some of the most electric, fun fighters to watch in the entire sport, definitely in that division. And Charles Olivera is giving them a run for their money. I think it might be the frame. It might be the way
knocking
they
them out.
Yeah. It might be the look that they have that makes them so exciting to watch. But look, Charles Oliveira's style is just like theirs. He goes in there and trades with whoever. And then sometimes he winds up cracking them and then puts them to sleep with a choke or something like that. But most of the time he's in there in a war and he's giving the people, so to speak, exactly what they want. So I think there's a lot of fun at 55. And, you never can predict this sport. Just when you think they're going to do something, or you think you've got a list of 5 guys and one by one, the champion's going to take them out or at least give his best, something happens. Volk decides he's probably going to move up. Conor decides he's going to go to 170. And then a couple people like, Dustin Poirier, Oliveira are going to chase him up there. So that frees up some new space in the 55 division. And then a couple of wins, a couple of good call outs, something like that. Then you've got a brand new mix of fighters. And suddenly the fans like us are like, you know what? I didn't even know this was an option because quite frankly, it wasn't an option. But now I'd rather see this fight happen.
Yeah, for sure. And got a few things. Danger, appreciate the suggestion on the time there, man. We'll definitely try to do that. I know it's getting late, your time over there.
Yes, sir.
And here your question. I'm curious why so much discussion on Conor fighting at 55 when Kavanaugh said months ago Conor would be fighting at 70 because he didn't want to do the hard weight cut anymore. I honestly think that if they make that fight, Danger, that there's a better than 50% chance that they do Conor versus Oliveira. I mean, that they would just make it at 70. But then I think you have like the Rakhmanovs and the Chimaevs and these guys coming up. And I think Conor's going to try to make a quick exit out of that division before those guys come up. And honestly, if Islam grabs the belt, which I really do believe he will, the Khabib parity there, I just think that he will make that cut back to 55 if he believes that the matchup is correct. And then when these killers start pouring in at 70, which is pretty inevitable at this point.
Yeah, and Conor's also a big guy, right? He looks pretty big, probably somewhere around the 190, 195 range, but a couple of weeks of hard training, 2-a-days and things like that, and he's going to cut right back down to that 155 frame that we know him to have, and I think he performs best at. 170 is a whole nother animal. That's a 15-pound jump, and you're talking about guys that are substantially bigger than the guys that you see at 155. Yeah. And I love Michael Chandler, I love Justin Gaethje, Conor McGregor, but those guys are not built for 170. I think, you'd have to find somebody who's a little bit taller, a little bit bigger, or just seems larger. I think like Khabib probably could have gone up to 170 and done good against the top of the top. But I just don't really know how Conor would fare against a Kamaru Usman or a Rakhmonov or a Chimaev. Yeah. I just don't see it.
Yeah, and also Khabib, his strength was grappling, which I think that you have a better, and we've seen Conor go up to 170, and yes, he's been able to get some finishes at the higher weight classes, but he was hitting Nate Diaz with everything he had and couldn't take him out. So
he also was with Stipe at the buffet beforehand and only weighed in at like 168. Or
exactly. So I think even though and he is a lot bigger now than he was when we last saw him fight, but I think we're going to see him come back at 70. But then I think he's going to quickly look to see what options are available between 70 and 55. And then so Danger asks to get Yo Alex, what's up, man? Thanks for joining the live.
Thank you.
And then Danger says, since we're talking lightweight, how does Volk do against Charles or Islam? In my opinion, man, better than most people think he would. I am done doubting Alexander Volkanovski. I think he's 1A, 1B, you name it, Kamaru Usman, Alexander Volkanovski. Either way you have that on the pound-for-pound list, I'm not going to argue with you as long as those two guys are at the top. And I think that Volkanovski against Charles would present a lot of problems. I mean, I know MMA math doesn't work, and I know it was a long time ago, but Max Holloway did finish Charles Olivera, and we've seen what Volk can do to him. Islam obviously would be a tougher challenge for Volkanovski, just because I think I think Volk would have a strength advantage over most people at 155, even though he's a 45er, with the exception being I don't think he would have a strength advantage over Islam. So I think that it would be a very tall order for Volk to try to get in there and score a win against Islam Makhachev. But as I said, I'm done doubting Volkanovski. I mean, the guy, more than anything, he just knows how to win, right?
Yeah, he knows how to win rounds, knows how to win fights. And look, when you say he's top 3 pound for pound, I have to agree. And Izzy is the other guy that I have up there with Kamaru. And
yeah, he's getting a lot of hate after 276. And I don't understand it.
Well, as of late, and I think it's hard to follow up the act of Volkanovski beating Max Holloway for a third time. And the way he did it, it went all 25 minutes, but it was exciting the entire time. And it was kind of a dismantling of what we knew as the featherweight GOAT. So when Izzy goes out there, it's kind of hard unless you go out there and finish your opponent. And Jared Cannonier is super durable, so he wasn't really able to get his shots off and land them with all the power he wanted. And Jared wasn't taking those leaps and taking those risks, which Israel Adesanya, we know, will never do that. He doesn't just put himself in danger for the sake of putting on an entertaining fight. He'll pick you apart from the outside and score and score and score. And that's how he likes to win his fights. But when you have Volkanovski going in there, pushing the pace, coming into fighting range, going into Max Holloway's, striking range and all that stuff, and then still getting his hand raised and doing it in emphatic fashion, it makes you go, okay, well, he's going to have a tough act to follow. And that's why I think Volkanovski might just jump right over his teammate and good friend Izzy as far as a pound for pound. I know he hasn't quite held the belt as long as Izzy, but it's starting to rack up there. And if he goes for champ status, I think there's a pretty good chance he gets the belt.
Yeah, these wins that Volk's putting together now are pretty dominant. And Izzy, it's kind of like you have to think about Izzy in two facets, because we saw him lose not that long ago, but that was a different weight class, right? So I almost kind of disregard that and just consider him, as far as the division goes, 185 pound for pound. But then seeing what Blachowicz was able to do to him, it kind of does tarnish that. But you know what? If Volk moves up and Islam does that to him, he could be in a similar situation.
Yeah, and who knows if Volkanovski moves up to 55 and loses, do you think he just goes back to 45, or do you think he becomes a contender / champion? He wants the champ status, but he also said he's willing to keep both belts active and just go back and forth between the two. I have a feeling that he would probably be a man of his word and do that. He'd try to go out there and win as much as he can at 45 and 55 and just sort of go like Amanda Nunes, back and forth and back and forth. But if he loses at 155, no harm, no foul. He could probably go be a top contender over there, but it also doesn't seem like it feels right for the champion of one division to also be entertaining fights. Like, if you're healthy, then fight in your division.
Yeah, I think the 155 experiment only works if he becomes the champ there.
Yeah.
I mean, as fun, sign me up for Michael Chandler versus Alexander Volkanovski.
That's the one I want to see.
I would love to see that. I would love to see Volk fight Justin Gaethje, Conor McGregor even. But the reality is it's hard to be a champion in one division and just a guy in the top 5 in another. So I think that experiment only works if he's able to grab the belt. But boy, wouldn't that be interesting. And I think he matches up better than a lot of people think he would with the champs and the top guys at 155. I think this is a guy that was 210 pounds at one point in his life. And according to Adesanya, he's still got the same strength that he had back when he was, 2 bills.
And I think he has the durability of a guy that used to weigh 200 pounds. And probably, if you take his word, he only spars with guys at 55 and 70 when he's getting ready for his camp, because I guess there's not enough bodies that are competitive at 45 for him. So he's able to feel the bodies of the top guys. Probably Dan Hooker comes to mind. Those are the types that he's feeling. And if he's like, I get the better of these exchanges, he might say, you know what, Dan, if you felt these guys and they don't feel as strong as I do, then maybe I've got a pretty good chance. And I do think he would have a significant speed advantage. I don't know the last time we saw somebody leave Max Holloway in the dust as far as speed goes. I think you'd have to go all the way back to when Conor McGregor fought him way, way back in the day. And Conor was moving at a different frequency back then. He was super fast, super agile, super fun to watch. Volkanovski was leaving him in the dust. He was much, much faster.
Yeah, I totally agree. Danger
What do we got?
Chandler Volk would be fun. I totally agree.
Yep.
I would love to see that. Even if they just did it as like a one-off, I don't see why. I know it's kind of hard to do the 55 thing if he's not the champ or at least fighting for a belt, but who knows? Stranger things have happened. I never thought Michael Bisping would grab the belt. You just never know who's going to grab the belt at any given time. And it's like 6 months time, the landscape totally changes. So
right. Some people pull out of their fights and then you wind up with something that you never expected, but really enjoy. We could see something like that take place where, let's just say they sign up Conor and Charles, they go up top and to 170, and then, Islam, and there's something that takes place there, and you have to find some replacements. And then quickly you see interim title, Michael Chandler, Volkanovski. I think that'd be something fun.
Yeah, you could totally see it. And so we've just talked about some of the most skillful fighters that MMA has to offer. Let's do a 180 and change directions and talk a little Jake Paul.
Well, we can't go into a fight news type of show and not have Jake Paul's name on the top of
love it or hate it. He's at the top of the headline. So interesting situation here. Tommy Fury was on his way to a press conference at Madison Square Garden, was denied entry into the United States, and it has something to do with a loose connection. I don't really know the details with somebody who was in some sort of organized crime. Yeah. It had something to do with their family. And so as a result of that, his visa was rejected. And basically what happened was they tried to postpone the press conference to a later date. And then Jake according to him, tried to accommodate Tommy Fury and make the fight still happen and help him out. And according to Jake, he went into, quote, hiding, him and his team, meaning his dad, Tyson, Tommy, all of them. And so there's a guy by the name of Hasim Rahman Jr., and he's 12-1. His father was the heavyweight champion of the world at one point. He's a heavyweight. He's 6'3", and he's got 6 knockouts on his record. And I'm hearing rumors that this is the guy that Jake is going to step in and take on in Tommy's absence. And they did officially terminate the agreement today. Jake came out on social media and said the fight's off officially between me and Tommy, and then immediately pointed to Rahman. And so most people, when they criticize Jake Paul, he's fighting smaller fighters. He's fighting people that aren't boxers. And, he's picking and choosing. So this is short notice. It's against a guy who's 6'3". If this materializes, against a guy who's 6'3", 12-1 as a professional boxer. That is the sport he participates in. His father was the heavyweight champion. So my question to you is, let's say they make this fight, and let's say Jake is able to win. Can we finally give Jake some credit as a boxer?
Yeah, I think most boxing fans would have to at least admit that he did fight a boxer for sure. And people are talking about Tommy Fury's kind of family lineage, right? He comes from a family of boxers. So it makes sense. Like, he's not a guy who did MMA or just did reality TV and then got into boxing. Like, he seems to be a guy that's been boxing for a long time. And that's was finally what people were looking for. They're like, at least Tommy Fury's not that good, but at least he exclusively boxes. He's not an MMA guy. He's not a wrestler. He's not a rapper. He's not a basketball player. At least he's a boxer. Well, this guy's got some of the same sort of accolades, I guess, as Tommy Fury. His family was in fighting very successfully at that, at heavyweight even. And now he exclusively competes in boxing. So I think it's a smart move. Obviously, there's 100 people that we could probably list off right here, right now, that want to get the Jake Paul fight. Aside from the Conor McGregor thing, that's probably the biggest money fight. And it seems like a lot of people assume it would be an easy night in the office. Whether you're a boxer or an MMA fighter, I think everybody gets a little bit irritated by Jake Paul from times, but that's the name of his game. That's what he wants. He wants you to be a little bit bothered.
It's very purposeful.
Yeah, and I actually find it very entertaining. I'm a fan of what Jake's doing. Sometimes he misses, but often he is smacking the ball right out of the park with home runs after home run after home run. So I find
that I Do Cocaine loop parody that he did with Dana White. Sorry, guys.
We might be experiencing
we're experiencing some technical difficulties. Growing pains of the first live.
You don't get a couple of handsome mugs to look at for the time being.
Comment if you guys are still there and can still hear us. Our camera just went out.
Yeah. Everything's still good.
Hold on one sec.
And then there was one. I'm assuming you guys can still hear us. Let us know. Give us a smoke signal if you can. Yeah, I can't imagine it messed the audio up.
All right.
All right, and we're back.
We're up. We're up.
Nice.
Sorry about that, guys. It's growing pains of the first live here. Okay,
Awesome.
perfect.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Danger. I was trying to figure out a way to segue between talking about Islam Makhachev, Alexander Volkanovski, Israel Adesanya, and then Jake Paul. So
Yeah.
had to get a little bit creative there. But
Yeah,
yeah,
sorry
about that.
We appreciate y'all bearing
guys.
with us. Yeah. But you know, of all the people that we thought, you know, you got the Nate Diaz, some of the big names over in MMA that have been wanting that Jake Paul fight, and even some of the boxers, you know, not a ton of them are saying Jake's name because they're kind of trying to, you know, keep him away from their sport. They just want to keep him on his own little island, let him do his thing. They'll call it celebrity boxing, but eventually they're going to have to say that he is in fact boxing and he's beating professionals. So I think that to pull somebody like this, that I am I've fought professionally in boxing, and I am really deep into the combat sports world. I don't know this guy, and it seems kind of crazy to pull somebody out of nowhere when there are so many big names. But at the same time, if he's the only guy that's answering the bell and he's willing to go in there and do the work on 40 or whatever days notice, then good for him, and he deserves the shot.
I think Jake wants to test himself. I mean, there's no other reason.
Yeah, and you know what I think Jake will do? I bet you Jake rolls out the red carpet for this guy. If he does say it, I bet you he doubles the amount of money they were going to give to Tommy. I bet you he, you know, gives him great treatment, maybe sends a private jet to pick him up and all that stuff. They'll do a little press thing. And Jake is really good at promoting fights, not only outside of the ring, but when it's his own fight, he does a great job at promoting. And, you know, with the YouTube videos that he puts out leading up to these fights, it's really, really impressive. All fighters should take note of it. And I get a lot of people don't want to do that promotional side of things, but it's essential that somebody does it to make your fight big. And Jake's willing to do it. He carries all the weight for these fights. I find it really impressive. And I think that Rahman will benefit greatly from going against Jake Paul. I think Jake will bump him up significantly. He will talk about how good of an opponent he is. And Jake's not a fool. You know, he's not one of those guys that's like, everybody I fight sucks. He goes, everybody I fight's really, really good. Yeah. And I just think this is a great move for him and a great opportunity for Rahman.
That's an old Floyd Mayweather move. That's a page right out of Money May's book. He used to literally come out and talk about all the ways his opponent could potentially knock him out, just to see the betting lines kind of get closer, excuse me. And then he would go bet on himself. So, you know, credit to Jake for taking a page out of the Money Team's book.
Smart move. Yeah.
But let's, one more topic that we want to talk about, and then you guys, we can just jump in and answer some questions or chat or whatever you guys want to talk about. But I want to talk about and then predict RDA versus Fiziev. I love this fight. I mean, with all that's going on at lightweight right now, I just think this is the right time to have the RDA versus Fiziev matchup. I think it answers a lot of questions. I think the person that wins this fight will probably enter into a #1 contenders sort of match. And what you have in RDA is a grizzled veteran, a former champion, took out Showtime when he was the Wheaties box guy, iron chin, had a hell of a run at 170, incredible grappling against a guy who's doing Muay Thai probably better than almost anybody within inside the MMA rule set in Rafael Fiziev. He's actually a former instructor at Tiger Muay Thai in Thailand. So for a foreigner to go into Tiger and be an instructor really says a lot. That's like an American moving to Brazil and running a Gracie Barra. It doesn't happen all that often. So what do you think about this upcoming RDA Fiziev fight?
I love this one. And I think this is a coming out party for Fiziev if he's able to get his hand raised. And he immediately jumps into that top echelon of 55ers that are on the cusp of getting a title shot. I don't think a win over RDA puts him in title contention, but it gets him set up for a fight against a Michael Chandler, against a Beneil Dariush, some of these really, really high up guys, maybe even a Justin Gaethje. And some of those matchups are actually pretty favorable for Fiziev because some of those guys do like to stand and trade. And that's just a mistake when you go with Rafael Fiziev. RDA has the skill set to beat Fiziev, though. I think with the grappling pedigree and the durability of Rafael dos Anjos, he's going to have to be perfect in all 25 minutes to basically not get submitted or not get caught with the threat of the takedown and stuff from RDA. And I think Fiziev has the ability to do that, but he can't go in there and get super crazy with his striking. He does need to sort of play the smart game if he does want to get his hand raised in this one, because if anything, RDA knows how to get his hand raised, knows how to win fights, knows how to win rounds, and of course knows how to win the belt.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And the interesting thing here is the difference in the odds, because Fiziev is almost a 3-1 favorite.
Wow.
And that surprised me. I expected him to be a minus 150, minus 175, but he's almost a minus 300 favorite over RDA, and the experience level, it's not even comparable. I mean, RDA has fought literally everybody. Fiziev's still on his way up. I get the skill set. I get the fact that he's on the right side of 30. I've seen the knockouts. I know how good he is. So I am going to pick him to win the fight. But I think if you're an RDA believer and you can get plus 210 action on the former champ, man, that's hard not to take.
No, absolutely. I'm excited for this one because if I'm correct, we haven't seen Fiziev go 5 rounds yet, have we?
No.
I think he's always ever been a co-main or under, and he's done some great stuff within the sport. And I don't know how long the fights are that he had prior to this in his Thai boxing career, but I'm sure he's used to the duration. It's just a little bit different when you get into the UFC. You're under that banner. You're the main event. Now you're the favorite too against the former champion. This is a first for Rafael Fiziev in a lot of ways. And I think he's probably one of those guys that with ice running through his veins, he's going to do what he has to do to get the job done. But the weight is definitely going to be on him. And it's a weight that Rafael dos Anjos has felt many, many times. He was in there in line with Conor McGregor, and that fight never ended up happening. But all the way up until about 9 days before, he was doing the press, he was doing all that stuff, training for it, and he knew exactly what he was getting into. Fiziev's kind of getting welcomed into the main event club this weekend, and I'm excited to see it happen. I think he rises to the occasion. If we're making predictions, I think the ball is going to keep rolling in his favor, and I'm going to go with a decision, but a great striking showcase for Rafael Fiziev.
Yeah, and it's going to be, if it does get to that decision, and it's hard to think that it won't be because RDA is so hard to finish, it's going to be really interesting to see where his gas is in rounds 4 and 5. Because as you said, we've only ever seen him in 3 before. And kickboxing, Muay Thai especially, is extremely explosive, is extremely fast twitch. And it's not really, there's a reason that boxing matches go 10 to 12 and kickboxing matches are 3 to 5 rounds in 3 minutes. And so it's one of those sports where you can't do it for a long time. And that is how he fights inside the octagon. I think Fiziev's going to win, but I think let's just talk about what RDA could do to spoil the party. I think RDA's got a granite chin. We all know that. But at the end of the day, everybody has a tolerance for what they can take, and nobody, no matter how good your chin, can experience an uppercut from Francis Ngannou and, be conscious to tell the story. Just ask Alistair Overeem. So I think RDA, what he needs to do is he needs to keep this out of kickboxing range and get it into boxing range, a very close boxing range with uppercuts, hooks, body shots. And then he needs to look for, pummels and try to get, double unders on Fiziev, maybe look for takedowns, exhaust him against the cage and really burn out that gas tank before Fiziev can really get off some of those switch kicks and spinning wheel kicks like we saw against Brad Riddell. The guy's got kicks that you don't see coming. And by the time you see his foot, you're waking up in the hospital. So I think that RDA can win it. He's got to manage the range. He's got to get in close. It's easier said than done. And I think he's got to exhaust Fiziev, but I don't think he's going to be able to. I think this is Fiziev's time. I think we're going to see him get a good win, and I think we're going to see him fight a top 5 next.
Yeah, I'm predicting the same thing, but I think you're right in the fact that he does need to close the distance. He can't be out there with kicking with Fiziev. You're just not going to win that exchange. What he needs to do is utilize that wall, because Fiziev has shown us that he's really good on the feet, and he shows us that he is an MMA fighter. He trains MMA, but when you get somebody who's a black belt on MMA grappling, MMA jiu-jitsu like RDA is, you've got your hands full if they've locked their arms behind you and put you up against the cage or pinned you. And once they do start to pull you down and peel you off the wall and get you on the mat, then it's a whole nother world down there. And I'm excited to see what Rafael Fiziev does when and if that happens to him, because I feel like he's probably working on all those things and doing the same thing that Izzy did early in his career, which was, don't worry so much about getting good at grappling. Get good at anti-grappling. Get good at takedown defense. And that's why I think that RDA is going to have to pull all sorts of tricks out of his sleeve to get this done. I think he needs to push the pace. He needs to make sure that Rafael Fiziev's back is against the wall, because strikers are best when they're moving forward or stationary. They aren't. There are really good strikers at moving backwards, but they're generally not as powerful. And even though somebody like Fiziev has all the strikes in the world, if he's moving backwards and he's being pressed, it's harder for him to get his offense off. So I think you got to utilize that cage if you're RDA. He needs to put that black belt to use. He needs to start getting this fight to the ground, and that's how he can win this fight. The way I see this happening is RDA gets it to the cage, puts him on the ground, and gets a submission, or Rafael Fiziev wins via decision.
I think it's going to be a decision for Fiziev. I think he's going to come out and win the first 3 rounds with that explosion, and I think we're going to see RDA come on really strong in rounds 4 and 5 with the grappling and probably win both rounds. And we're going to end the night saying, man, if there was a 6th round, RDA would have finished him. I honestly feel like that's how it's going to be. I feel like the tide is going to turn later in the fight, but it's going to be too late. Who do you guys? We got 8 in the chat right now. Who do you guys think is going to win, RDA or Fiziev, and how?
It's Rafael versus Rafael.
Rafa versus Rafa.
Yeah. Ironically spelled the exact same way.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I really do like this matchup, and the rest of the card's pretty good too. You know, nothing that's jumping.
We
off
got
the
Said
page.
Nurmagomedov. I'm and talk about bantamweight. I mean, I was thinking the other day, like all the good fighters at bantamweight, and then I forgot about Said until I saw this fight card. I'm like, no, I'm an idiot. How could I have forgotten about one of the most explosive, ridiculous strikers in all of the UFC? And so it's going to be a hell of a fight card.
Well, he's not a squeaky wheel, so to speak. You can't forget about Sugar Sean, because he's always loud and he's always in the news and online and whatnot. Those Nurmagomedovs, those Dagestani fighters.
He's not loud about fighting Said, though.
No, exactly. You don't want to see that, and I don't think the UFC would be doing that anytime soon. Maybe unless there's a belt on the line, you'll never see those guys fight each other.
That was a bummer about O'Malley and Pedro. It's a shame the way that fight ended.
Yeah, it was.
So Danger's got Fiziev. I think you're right.
I saw an article on, or not an article, but a title on YouTube of like, I guess it was the MMA Hour or something like that, and it said Pedro Munoz is not very thrilled with how Sean O'Malley's handling this fight, and it's like that sums up the whole situation. You're not very thrilled. Like, of course, Sean's a troll through and through. Yeah. When they say his record's 15-1, he puts up the 0. You know, he's just going to troll you the whole way, and he says he got to finish right there. He was the first guy to finish Pedro, and that's just going to be his thing. Sean means nothing by it. He's funny. He's really, really talented. And I think he's doing a great job at marketing these fights. Personally, in my opinion, he currently has 2 fights that I'd love to see him do rematches with. Chito Vera, love to see that one go again at some point. And now Pedro. I think that as long as Pedro stays within the UFC, he's got a chance at dancing with Sugar Sean again. But he's got to do the right things. You got to play ball. Don't get offended by what Sean's doing. Push into it, create a feud, create a beef, even if it's somewhat artificial. You want to be in there with Sean O'Malley, because if you are, you're on a pay-per-view card, you're on the main card, and you're absolutely getting talked about all over the internet.
Yeah, and apparently we live in a world now where if you lose a fight, you just say you won.
Yeah,
you know, if it's a no contest, you just say you won. It's like you can fabricate your own reality in the world today. But Thrill Hill, thanks for joining the live, man. Fiziev, more dynamic striker. I agree with you. I think there's some ways for RDA to win. I do believe that Fiziev has to be careful with his gas tank, because I think RDA can take it into the later rounds, and that's where he'll be in some danger if he hasn't done enough damage on Dos Anjos by the time it gets to rounds 4 and 5. But I'm with you. I think Fiziev is the more dynamic striker. RDA is pushing that 40-year-old mark. You know, he still looks great, still fights great, but I'm riding with Fiziev on this one too.
I'm also sort of banking on Fiziev winning so I can hear him call somebody out. I think last time it was Hasbulla, and then
that's right, he did call out Hasbulla,
which is fantastic. Hasbulla is a superstar. And then somebody else, I can't remember who it was. Maybe it was an actor, Vince Vaughn.
That's right. He wanted to fight Vince Vaughn. What was that? What was the reason for that?
I can't remember. I think he's like a big fan. He's just he just said he wanted to fight him.
Don't become a big fan of Fiziev. He'll want to kick your ass.
Yeah, exactly. So Vince Vaughn and Hasbulla, his hit list is getting pretty extensive.
I'm telling you. Well, guys, do you guys have any more questions before Nick and I wrap? Anything you want us to chat about? Let us know. And as we said, Thrill, I'm not sure if you were here in the beginning or not, but we're going to do a live every week, likely on Wednesday evenings. That's the time that works best for Nick and I. or day that works best for Nick and I, excuse me. But let us know what times work for you guys. I know everybody's in different time zones, and we'll try our best to accommodate for all of you guys so that the most amount of people can join us. All right, we got something from Danger here. A couple of weeks away, UFC Fight Night London, Blades versus Aspinall, Craig versus Ozdemir. Who wins, and how far do you think Tom can go, presuming he wins or even not? I'm super excited about that fight. And it's funny, Danger, before we went live, we actually were talking about potentially doing like a fight companion type thing for this fight, just because it's an afternoon fight for us here in the States. And I've said it on episodes that we've done in clips before, and I still stand firm in that. I believe the UK's next best hope for a champion is Tom Aspinall. I think he's 28, 29 years old. He's got submission skills. He's got knockout skills. I think that by the time he's in his early 30s, he could be the best heavyweight in the world. And I really believe that. I think Tom Aspinall, and I know there's some Leon fans out there, but I just don't see it happening. I think Kamaru is going to defeat Leon. Therefore, I think Tom Aspinall is going to be the UK's next champion. And then Craig versus Ozdemir.
Great fight.
God, who knows? I mean, Paul Craig was literally like getting beat up from the guard last time until he threw. Who was that Russian guy he fought? He was literally getting his ass kicked from the guard, and then he threw up a triangle. It was like he was waiting for a triangle the whole time. I mean, it's so hard to count Paul Craig out. I think he's got some of the best subs in all of the UFC right now, and he's doing. I mean, I love. By the way, the relationship and friendship between him and Jamal Hill since their fight has been hilarious. Jamal Hill is one of the best follows on Instagram, in my opinion.
Yeah, I have Sweet Dreams. I've been following him. I like what he's doing. He's making the reels.
If you guys haven't followed Jamal Sweet Dreams Hill on Instagram, definitely do that.
You're welcome. And I really like this card that's going to take place over in London. I think Aspinall and Blades are two guys that, in my opinion, if everything goes right for their careers, they could both see the UFC belt at some point. I think Curtis Blades has the skills. I know he's had some rough losses. He's lost to Francis twice. He lost to Derek pretty brutally. Every time
when he loses, it's brutal.
It's pretty bad. Yeah, it's super bad actually. But I think he has the skills to win. When there's a changing of the guard and there's a clean sheet, like I don't think Stipe is going to be around all that much longer. I don't think John's going to be around. I don't think Francis is going to be around all that much longer. And I don't know if Tai Tuivasa truly has the skills to defend a belt and just keep everybody away from it, right? If he does get it, I think that, Tai Tuivasa is one of the top prospects and top fighters in the heavyweight division, but it wasn't that long ago that he was straight up losing a fight to Greg Hardy before he slept him.
That's true.
So I think that skill-wise, I don't think there's a scenario in the world where Greg Hardy beats Curtis Blades. But it was about to happen with Tai Tuivasa until he cracked him. And then he gets a couple more big wins, big finishes. And I love Tai. Bam Bam is one of my guys. I'm always going to cheer for him, but I just don't know if he has the staying power if and when he does get to the belt. I think
the UFC may have laid an egg on the matchmaking, because I do think Aspinall can beat Blades, and I think he probably will. Like, we'll have to think about that and do our predictions at a later date. Yeah. But I think that if you're looking to, that last card in the UK was just an absolute banger.
Yeah.
If you did Tuivasa, I don't know if he's got a fight on the books, but if you did Tuivasa versus Aspinall, I think it gives Tom a much better chance of winning. Not to say that he can't beat Blades, because I think he probably can and will. But I think that would be a more fun fight to see Bam Bam versus Aspinall in the UK.
Well, and if they get a belt over there, if one of the guys, Aspinall or, one of these UK fighters is able to get a belt, Leon, then you could go do a pay-per-view over there. You put Patty the Batty on it. You put Molly Meatball. You put Aspinall. You Craig, get all, Craig, all of these people. Conor McGregor.
Yeah.
No, I don't think that one would happen. But all these names on there would actually make for a really fun fight night. And that one in London, when Patty fought last and everything, that was super fun. I could kind of feel the energy of the stadium or the crowd while I was sitting on my couch just watching. I think it was middle of the day too. It was just super electric in there. And I think that they almost had a clean sweep. All the famous British fighters won, maybe one or two lost, but anyway, it was a great night. I'm sure the pubs were bumping afterwards, and for me, they show up and they show out for their fighters when they come up, and that's why I feel like one of them is primed to get a belt. Not just Michael Bisping. I think somebody else is going to come along relatively soon, and I'm kind of with you. I think Tom Aspinall might be the one that gets it before Molly, Patty, Leon, you name them.
Yeah, Patty's got an uphill battle. But
Yeah.
by the way, thank you, Thrill. We really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much.
What do you guys think? Tom wanted Ty. Yeah, I mean, I don't blame him. I don't blame him.
That's a good matchup for Tom.
Yeah, I think that would be a very favorable. I actually would pick Tom to win that by knockout. Tom, I think, Ty's fun, but Tom has cleaner boxing, and I think he's got way better submissions than Ty.
Yeah, Ty's just got to land that big shot.
Yeah.
You know, if he does it, he can knock out the biggest and baddest guys in the division. But, you know, he doesn't really have the reach and the accolades and the body to beat these guys. He just happens to get them in a dogfight with him, and then he's usually able to be the batter dog.
For sure.
Yeah.
And guys, what do you think about our old friend Jordan Levitt? He said he's going to twerk on Paddy after he knocks him out. You guys think that's going to happen in the UK? And then as a follow-up to that, would Jordan Levitt be able to make it out of the UK in one piece if he were to do that in the stadium?
Yeah, that would be hilarious if he did.
I like Jordan. I like Paddy and Jordan, actually.
See,
I think super excited for that fight.
Yeah, and I don't know. I've never been to a soccer game over there or anything like that, but I feel like they're able to separate sport from real life. Like sometimes you watch these guys go down to Brazil, and like Colby Covington takes the mic and says they're a bunch of filthy animals, and like
the next thing you know, he's got police escorts out of the country.
Right. His safety was actually in jeopardy after that. Chael Sonnen, same thing. He goes in there and lights a bomb on all the Brazilian fighters, and then he has to have security around him. I feel like the UK is a little bit different. Like they get that there's a little bit of promotion, performance going on here.
I don't know. Some of those football games get pretty heated. I've seen some pictures of some like brass knuckles and
I've heard some crazy stuff.
Yeah.
I've heard some stuff like if you on the night of a fight of a soccer match, if you
Nick's just going to keep calling it soccer match, by the way, Danger.
Soccer pitch, whatever. If you fight and you wind up going to jail, they'll look for like tattoos of like your soccer league or what soccer team.
Is that right?
Yeah. And if they see you with like their merch on or something and you were fighting another soccer fan, like you can get banned from the stadium. Now this could all be false, but I've heard that before. So it's kind of crazy. They kind of know to separate sport from real life, but maybe the alcohol gets the best of some people's opinions.
That's
sometimes.
for sure. Danger, I got to go with our guy Patty, but yeah, Jordan gets to leave alive if he wins. I mean, if the guy's willing to twerk inside of the octagon, how could you really not give him a bit of a pass? I mean, I think that's not been done before, certainly by any male fighter.
Yeah, and I don't know how you could like soccer or football. I'm kind of with you on that one. Once we watch UFC fighting and once we watch boxing, it kind of ruins all the other sports. For me. I can't watch something that's so slow paced like soccer.
I like American football. I'm a fan. You're not really into it, but not your bag.
Take it or leave it. But
MMA, I mean, it's like MMA, and then there's a country mile between boxing and MMA, and then there's another country mile between that and everything else. And I nerd out on jiu-jitsu, but I know I'm like one of the 7 people in the world that watches IBJJF. I'm well aware of that.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully ADCC, sells out and they're able to bring some more eyes to the sport. But, at some point, somebody's got to give us some set of rules for jiu-jitsu to follow, or else we're all just going to be making our own promotions, making our own rules, and giving out belts that really don't mean anything.
Yeah, cricket is the game to watch, but so I've heard.
Yeah.
So I have heard. We'll have to check it out. But so Nick, we're about at an hour right now. I think we're going to wrap the live here, guys. Danger, we really appreciate you hanging out and all the comments. I know it's late over there, so we appreciate you staying up for us. Thrill, we appreciate you. Torin, I think Torin was in the chat earlier. Alex. You guys are all great. We really appreciate it. And it's going to be a Wednesday thing. We're going to go live, and then we'll try to figure out some way. Maybe we can clip some of these segments up and edit them a bit for you guys. So the clips will be out there as well. We have to kind of figure out how to do that. But thanks, Danger. We enjoyed you hanging out with us as well. And Nick, unless you got anything to say, guys, if you haven't already, like, comment, and subscribe.
Yeah.
And if you're into all things MMA, this is the place to hang out. And we'll see you in the next one.
All right. Peace.